we are. Looks like we are online, both on Instagram and on Facebook. I will give it a minute or two. The scheduled live still isn't working properly on my computer, at least. I don't know why. But I will give it a minute for people to come on. Here we go. Shmuley is on. Very good. We'll just give it another minute or two just to let people join. If you have some of this at home, feel free to go grab it now. This is Boondocks 8-year in port casks. Great bourbon that we'll be reviewing in just a few minutes. All right, I think that's good. All right, my eyes will be bouncing around. I got 3 different cameras going, so don't mind if I'm not making eye contact. It's not intentional. So we will start off. We'll talk about Shavuos a bit. Next week I won't be going live because Thursday night is Shavuos, and which commemorates when we got the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai. So when you think of a spiritual experience, you can think about prayer, meditation. I'm not sure, Shmuley. I'll get back to you on that. But as I was saying, when we think of a spiritual experience, you can picture, prayer, maybe, one of the nature's wonders of the world, the meditation maybe. But that's not exactly how the Torah describes the greatest divine revelation in history, the giving of the Torah. So the Torah says, and they saw the God of Israel, and beneath his feet was like the forming of a sapphire brick, and like the appearance of the heavens for clarity. If you want to follow along, I'm looking in the Chumash of Shemos, chapter 24, verse 10. And continues, and upon the nobles of the children of Israel, he did not lay his hands, and they perceived God, and they ate and they drank. Seemed kind of weird. They perceived God, and their response was to eat and drink. You would have thought there's a little more reverence, like just going about eating and drinking right when they see God. It seems a little odd. There's a lot of commentators that discuss this, and they seem to kind of be split on this. Some maintain that the eating and drinking was indeed a sin, and the proof of that is that the pasuk says, it says in the Chumash, and upon the nobles of the children of Israel he did not lay his hand, which means that God thought about punishing them for it, but he did not lay his hand, proving that there was something wrong, but they weren't actually punished for it. Others, however, explain that not only was it permitted for them to eat and drink, but it was the right thing to do, since the food and the drink were not a distraction from the divine revelation, but rather it was a celebration of it. Judaism teaches us that our task in the world is to make the physical spiritual, to the point where the physical and the spiritual are joined together. So those are the 2 conflicting opinions. Hasidic philosophy explains that before the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai, the separation between physical and spiritual was unbridgeable. At Sinai, the separation was broken. God descended upon Mount Sinai, enabling us, for the first time in history, to elevate the physical world and connect it to holiness. The problem, though, with this view, is that it doesn't explain the second part of the verse, where it says, and upon the nobles of the children of Israel, he did not lay his hand. So on the other explanation, we said that this was God deciding not to punish them, even though what they did was wrong. But what does it mean if what they did was right? So to those that maintain that the Jews sinned, right? So we understand that what the pasuk meant. So the Hebrew word for nobles, and he uses in the Chumash here, is atzile, which has the same root word as the word etzel, which means near. The Alter Rebbe explains that when it says he did not lay his hand, it means that God did not place fear within the hearts of the nobles. Many of the Jewish people at Sinai were overwhelmed by the intensity of the experience and they were unable to eat. It was specifically the nobles, those closest to God, who were not awe-stricken and were able to engage in elevating the food and drink. The lesson the Alter Rebbe says that he's teaching is that the more we connect to the sacred, the more we're able to fulfill the task of elevating the physical world. This also explains the Talmudic debate regarding the purpose of Shabbos. Some argue that Shabbos was given to the Jewish people as a time to study. We labor all week, we work all week, we're out, we're busy, making a living, doing what we need to do. And Shabbos, we have time to sit back, and we have time to learn. We have time to engage in the Torah. While others say that Shabbos was given to the Jewish people to enjoy food and drink, and to honor Shabbos with these delicacies. So the Alter Rebbe explains that these two opinions do not contradict one another. They address two different situations. If we spend 6 days a week completely engaged in our business, in our material things, hustle and bustle, then we need a Shabbos to set aside for Hashem and to engage completely in Torah and godliness. But if we create moments of closeness to God during the week, then on Shabbos, we enjoy the pleasures of food and drink because the spiritual experience empowers us to be able to sanctify the food and the drink. The more we connect with the spiritual and holiness, the more we can elevate the material world. So, let's make elevate the spiritual and the physical together by having a l'chaim. Today we're going to try some Boondocks. This is a 8-year-old bourbon whiskey. This is actually very special. It's one of the few kosher bourbons that is finished in port casks. Boondocks is actually owned by Royal Wine Company, a Jewish-owned company. They have port casks. They may have sherry. They have a lot of wines, a lot of award-winning wines. And they came out with a bourbon a few years ago. They don't distill themselves. They source the bourbon. The master distiller, I believe, came from Woodford Reserve to Boondocks, and they finish the products there after they get them from their sources. The age on this, like I said, is an 8-year-old. The mash bill is undisclosed. It's 90 proof, so 45% alcohol. And they say that a lot of the barrels that go into this are actually older than 8, but they have to put the age statement of the youngest barrel that goes into it. So, we got our nice Bourbonrabbi shot glass, so everyone can see. The color is actually light for an 8-year-old. I expected it to be a little bit darker. Wow, very, very sweet nose. And a caramel. Very enjoyable nose. We'll give it a taste. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehakol niyeh b'dvaro. A little fruity, which the wine probably brings to it. A little bit of spice. Not much else. And the finish is very short as well. It goes down kind of creamy and smooth, and ends quickly. I'd expect, for an 8-year-old, last a little longer going down, but quite enjoyable. L'chaim. If you tasted it at home, let me know what you think.